Hello everyone. I am here to present you part of my research work titled as Using the Expanded STP Model for Screening Level Assessment of Chemicals of Emerging Concern during the Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant process conducted in the College of Engineering of University of Saskatchewan. Throughout the last decade, the definition of chemicals of emerging concern, abbreviated as CSCEs, has morphed into an open-ended and ambiguous term. Currently, any compound with domestic, agricultural, and industrial origins that is not currently monitored but might enter the environment and potentially cause an adverse effect to the ecosystem or human health can be considered as an emerging compound. In Canada, from 5,800 treatment systems, only 25% are taking advantage of advanced removal system, while the rest either not treated or processed in a conventional activated sludge type system. So the chemicals are being released into the environment through the effluent stream or the sludge. Here you could see a review study on removal rates for a wide range of emerging compounds through conventional activated sludge type system. As you could see, emerging compounds are not treated completely through the treatment process. Emerging compounds could be categorized into pharmaceuticals and personal care products, pesticides, flame retardants, metals, and nanomaterials. These chemicals, despite low concentration, are being accumulated in aquatic systems, causing endocrine disrupting effects, antibiotic resistance, and in some cases, even extinction or changing biodiversity of aquatic habitats. So wastewater treatment plant fate models acting as a risk assessment tool gives us a better knowledge of the chemical distribution through the treatment plant. These models are assessing the treatability of emerging chemicals, having the plant operational parameters and physiochemical properties as the model inputs. Volatilization, partitioning to solids, biodegradation, and discharge via a final effluent are main fate pathways for the emerging compounds through the treatment processes. Biodegradation data is the most uncertain part, followed by partitioning coefficients. In the absence of laboratory-determined parameters, a range of values may be used to define the potential impacts of input data on the fate of chemicals through these treatment systems. So in this study, expanded STP model applied for the creation of partitioning maps using typical activated sludge type system and facultative and irritated lagoon systems operational parameters. These maps may be used to determine the potential fate of chemicals based on their air-water partitioning coefficient and octanol water partitioning values, both of which are typically available in the literature for most compounds. The partitioning maps created for a suite of hypothetical chemicals with different physiochemical properties. As you can see here, air-water partitioning coefficient and octanol water partitioning coefficient were chosen as the only two variable parameters. These parameters were varied incrementally from 2 to -9 and 1 to 9 respectively, creating a 9 to 12 grid presenting 108 hypothetical chemicals within each partitioning map. For all of the treatment processes considered in this study, desorption to solids dominates for high octanol water partitioning coefficients. Actually, such behavior is expected due to the strong binding affinity of these chemicals to organic carbon. These bound chemicals, including emerging compounds, would not be available for biodegradation or volatilization and will accumulate in sludge and unsuspended solids in wastewater effluents. For activated sludge processes at higher air-water partitioning coefficients and high octanol water partitioning values, chemicals will remain sorbed due to small process surface area and shorter resistance times, while for both lagoon types, sorption decreased for more volatile chemicals, given the higher surface area and residence times in these systems. For all three systems, high air-water partitioning and low octanol water partitioning represent chemicals which are lost due to volatilization. This behavior is also expected because these chemicals are highly volatile and will not sorb to solids and do not have a high affinity for water, despite their low hydrophobicity. Volatilization for both lagoon processes are also higher, given the same reason as higher surface area and residence times in comparison to the activated sludge type processes. Chemicals with lower octanol water and air-water partitioning coefficients values will remain in the wastewaters and are released via effluents for each of the processes. These chemicals are not being sorbed to solids and have higher vapor pressures to be volatilized, so they prefer to remain in the wastewater matrix. As you could see, the that the activated sludge type process have a greater amount of chemicals being lost in the effluents. After the creation of these maps without consideration of biodegradation, the second set of maps include both slow and fast biodegradation rates to help determine the impacts of this fate process on different systems. The partitioning maps modified to include chemical biodegradation. For simplicity, biodegradation rates plotted including 50% and 100% biodegraded areas for each of the treatment systems. For the activated sludge type plots, biodegradation impacts are quite significant, with almost half of the plot area showing 50% of the chemicals being biodegraded, and a large portion with 100% biodegradation rate. While lagoons shows impacts of biodegradation for chemicals released via effluents and overlapping regions, the irrigated lagoon system only has 50% biodegradation being predicted, with no chemicals being fully biodegraded in these systems. So, helping to understand the partitioning maps, here we have 5 chemicals of interest including D2-ethylhexyl phthalate, fluorethane, toluene, cyclooctane, and dimethyl phthalate presented as case studies to discuss their fate and transport with and without inclusion of either of fast or slow biodegradation rates. D2-ethyl phthalate characterized by low solubility in water and subsequent high hydrophobicity. In the absence of biodegradation, DHP is almost sorbed to solids for all treatment processes. In activated sludge system and facultative lagoon systems, considering biodegradation, 20 to 40% loss to biodegradation is predicted, while it remains almost unchanged for the aerated lagoon. It should be noted that sorbed chemicals are not available for biodegradation, so fate in this region should be considered for further evaluation, given the potential impacts of biodegradation in this area. For fluorethane, which is a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon that is found in both raw fuel and fuel combustion products. It's a hydrophobic and low soluble in water. Fluorethane is mainly sorbed to solids for the activated sludge process and is close to over 80% sorbed to solids for both lagoon processes. Considering biodegradation, fluorethane is expected to be biodegradable in activated sludge process, while little or no biodegradation would be expected for either of the lagoon systems. Toluene is a water-soluble aromatic hydrocarbon applied as a solvent in the industry and can be released in air, water, and even soils where it is produced or used. In the absence of biodegradation, it will volatilize in both lagoon processes and either volatilize or more likely remain in effluents in activated sludge type systems. Increased volatilization would be expected in the lagoon treatments given the larger surface area and longer retention times in these systems. But biodegradation does not affect the fate of toluene in either lagoon processes. However, during the activated sludge process, biodegradation may account for the chemical fate of toluene. For cyclooctane, which is applied as a coating, plastic roofing material, and pesticide, without biodegradation, the fate of cyclooctane in lagoon processes is similar to toluene, while having slightly higher volatilization than toluene in activated sludge systems. With biodegradation, cyclooctane fate is not impacted by either of the lagoon processes, but for the activated sludge process, up to half of the cyclooctane fate may be biodegraded. For dimethyl phthalate, which is water-soluble chemical applied in the production of plastics, DMP is found almost exclusively in the effluent for all three treatment systems in the absence of biodegradation. DMP would be mostly freely dissolved, so it is available for biodegradation. With the inclusion of biodegradation, approximately all of the DMP would be lost due to biodegradation in the activated sludge type system and facultative lagoon processes. So in conclusion, as you could see, municipal wastewater treatment plant effluents have been a continual source of both historic chemicals and emerging pollutants. The fate of these chemicals in the activated sludge type, irrigated lagoons, and facultative lagoons assessed in this study using the expanded STP model. This model was used for the development of partitioning maps using 108 hypothetical chemicals that were defined by octanol water and air water partitioning values. Overall, these partitioning maps were similar for the three municipal wastewater treatment plants without consideration of biodegradation. Once biodegradation was included, there was a clear difference between the three processes, with the activated sludge type being the most impacted by biodegradation, followed by the facultative lagoon, and lastly the aerated lagoon, which shows the necessity of precise investigation of the biodegradation kinetic for the emerging compounds in these systems. Additionally, 5 case study chemicals highlighted the need for proper assessment of chemicals found in the overlapping zones in the partitioning maps, where the fate and transport of the chemicals would be more difficult to assess. Thank you so much for all your attention.